Welcome to REST, which stands for Resiliency and Empowerment Seminar today. I am your host, Susan Gans, and I am the founder and strategic advisor with Gans Strategic Solutions, where we operate at the intersection of human behavior and business. This show is about hearing from leaders of small, mid-sized businesses as well as nonprofits. We hear about the journeys of the leaders as well as about their organizations, and very importantly these days, about how they're being resilient during these challenging times. Today, I'm so excited to have our guest, Mary Simmons. A bit about Mary. She is the Director of Human Resources Consulting at Portnoy, Messinger, Pearl and Associates, Inc., which has been helping organizations to stay compliant with employment laws for over 54 years. Very impressive. Mary partners with organizations of all sizes to help them on a project basis with creating employee handbooks, delivering targeted training, guiding them through employee relations, providing careers in transition training and counseling, and executive coaching. She also can act as the human resources professional within organizations to ensure employee productivity and compliance. Mary has her PHR and SHRM CP certifications, as well as a degree from the University of Delaware in Human Relations. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you, Susan. I so appreciate you having me, and I'm so excited about our interview today.
We're delighted to have you as well. So let's get into it. Take us back to the earlier days of your career. How did you decide to focus on human resources?
Thank you, Susan. That's a great question. And so, I try to follow the advice that I've given other individuals when I help them with career transition and try to work in a position that you have some passion for. And in human resources, I'm working with people. And I found very early in my career that that was something that I had a skill set for and that I really enjoyed helping people. And now, of course, I'm helping business owners as well as their employees.
And what do you like most about it? What motivates you?
I think what motivates me the most, and I'm one of those rare people who say I love what I do. And truly I do, because at this point in my career as a consultant, I'm helping business owners with their problems. And I know a lot of people aren't suited for that, right? A lot of people might say, oh my goodness, you deal with problems all day. But I get to solve those problems and help them work through it to usually a positive outcome. And of course, these are very trying times right now.
Yes.
But the most positive outcome, I'll say, that we can work towards is our goal.
And you mentioned these challenging times. So let's talk about resiliency, because we had an earlier conversation and you shared some of the challenges and the difficulties that businesses are facing and how you are there for them. And can you share more about the resiliency of supporting businesses?
Absolutely, Susan. So again, we all know that these are trying times. So besides the pandemic itself and the dangers of the pandemic, we also have the response of businesses to the pandemic, whether that business was shut down, whether there's a slowdown in business, or whether they have individuals who either have COVID, or a lot of families now are finding it very challenging to get to work because they have children at home that they have to care for. So we're there to guide the employers and try and find that intersection, right? That perfect mix between trying to support their employees and keeping the business running. And it's a very difficult balance, Susan, as you know. So what we're trying to do is help them make those decisions. Is it best to do the shared work program through unemployment and have some of your employees only work part-time? Is it best to decrease salaries? In some cases, it may be best to lay individuals off because of the extended unemployment payments. And, you know, it's, again, a difficult decision for businesses right now. But the way I try to guide them is say, listen, your business is like a ship. Sometimes some individuals have to go on the lifeboat to keep the rest of the ship or the company afloat. And maybe you bring those individuals back at a later date, but layoffs may be something that does have to happen in these difficult times.
And that's never an easy decision. And it sounds like, you know, you take on a lot from these companies during the day. I'm
Yeah.
curious about your own self-care. What do you do to stay present and focused for your clients and your family and all the other things that you're involved in?
And that's another great question, and it's a really easy answer for me, and that's you know, exercising. So, you know, I think we all recognize, and if we don't, we need to recognize that even though the pandemic presents very difficult times, it certainly has presented most of us with some positive things. Being together as a family, having a little bit of downtime when we were working at home, which was very short amount of time for me, but I was exercising an hour and a half a day. Our family started training for a triathlon, which of course they aren't going to happen, but you know, we're trying to, you know, still keep up with our, you know, training, which is, you know, a mile swim every other day, running on the spare days and biking on the third day. So to me, physical fitness, and you don't have to do that mile swim like I'm doing. It could just be a walk around the neighborhood, but getting outside, getting fresh air is definitely a way. And, you know, let's face it, it's scientifically proven that it helps not only your health, but your mind.
Absolutely agreed 100%. Walking is my thing. I'm very impressed with people who can run and swim and bike and all that, but walking is my thing. And I'm glad that you fit that into your schedule intentionally, because I talk all the time to people about the importance of self-care. And that was a lesson I learned sort of later on in life.
Good. Yeah. Just so you move, Susan, walking is fine.
And then I've been known to dance, but then that's a whole different story.
I'd like to hear that story sometime.
So let's talk about empowerment, because what you're doing too with the self-care is empowering. And how do you bring that into the work that you do with your companies and also for yourself? How do you empower yourself?
So I'll address how I empower the companies first. And
Okay.
it's a high energy job, and that's another reason why I love doing it. So whether I'm doing management training and teaching the managers to be empowered, and then teaching them, you know, right down the line, how do you empower now your employees? I'm empowering you by giving you this information. How are you now going to empower your employees? It all is, you know, high energy. It does take a lot of energy to go through with this. And so what I try to do again is you know, you just can't quit. You have to keep following up and sticking to the course of action that you have in place. Even when we're working remotely, even during a pandemic, we still have to stick to the course of action that we have in front of us. And listen, the laws aren't going to be set aside, the employment laws, so we also have that organizations have to follow.
Absolutely. And what about empowering yourself? What do you do?
So when it comes to empowering myself, I try to utilize that energy that, you know, I'm trying to keep up with on my spare time, and give myself the, you know, the right to always be transparent with my clients, because I think that's really the only way that you can gain their trust. So I try to be transparent when I can be transparent. In other words, sometimes I have to say to a client, I don't think that I can help you with this. I need to introduce you to somebody else who can help you better. And I also need to be transparent sometimes with the clients and say, what I think you're doing is endangering your organization. And I think you need to take another course of action. So that transparency that I try to live by with my clients is how I try to empower myself.
Thank you for sharing that very important perspective and being very clear and direct to let your clients know, here it might be some ramifications of your action and here are the alternatives, instead of dancing around it or trying to shy away from a difficult conversation or message to deliver.
Right.
Which brings me to my next question. What is something that you wish that you knew, that you know now, that you wish you knew earlier in your career or your younger self? Like, what would you tell your younger self?
I think that when I was younger, and I see it in the younger people now, that you do get caught up in some of the politics within an organization. And for me, I'm supporting organizations, so you can get caught up in that. And so I wish that I had learned the lesson of being transparent sooner, because I do feel that being honest and being transparent on why and how you're doing things is beneficial to the people around you. And again, it builds the trust that individuals have in you. And that's always going to benefit you in the long run. It may be a little painful in the beginning, instead of skirting around the issue, which I find many people do. I think that transparency is a time-saving and an honest way to conduct business.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. What about mentors and sponsors throughout your career? Have you had different mentors and sponsors at different stages? And what have you learned from your mentors and sponsors?
That's another great question. And of course, that's something that I'm always pontificating on to my clients and saying, listen, I think a mentorship program is fabulous, and it doesn't necessarily have to be traditionally that more experienced older person in the office mentoring a younger person. We like to talk about reverse sponsoring and reverse mentoring, because the younger people can very often assist the older people in the office with myriad of things. Right now, Anthony Akampura, who is the owner and one of the main partners of Silverman Akampura, is a mentor to me. And the way that he conducts business and the way that he treats our clients and all of the employees here at PMP is something that I really look up to, because he treats us with kindness and professionalism. And I think a lot of times people think that one is mutually exclusive of the other, and that is so far from the truth. And when it comes to these difficult times, the pandemic, of course, being the most important thing, but also businesses failing right now, I think we cannot lose track of kindness and professionalism, and they go hand in hand to me. Kindness is the one thing that the more you give, the more you get, and there can be kindness in business, and that's something that the organizations need to keep in mind. This is a difficult time for the business, but also for their employees. What can we do as a business to support our employees while supporting the organization? It does go hand in hand, Susan. And Anthony teaches that over and over again, by the way he runs Silverman Akampura and PMP.
Yes, he is a wonderful leader. He is very humble and he's got a great style. So it's no surprise that he's successful.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and that brings me to a question about vulnerability, because some people might see kindness, for example, as weak, and being vulnerable and recognizing like there's these are emotional times. We're human
Right.
beings and we have feelings about what is going on, even though we wear many hats. We have professions, we have families, we have community organizations we're involved in. So can you share a bit about vulnerability and that, how that plays into leadership?
Absolutely. And you are right that sometimes kindness can be weakness. And particularly when we're talking about employment law and working with employees, we have to stay consistent. And we often set precedents when we show too much kindness to one employee and we're not able to give the same benefits or time off, et cetera, to the other employees. And so when we are showing kindness, that's where the professionalism comes into place, that it can't be misguided kindness. It has to be in line with the organization's culture. It has to be in line with employment law, right? Because we cannot do something that makes us
Right.
vulnerable. So you really have to, you cannot look at it in a vacuum. I just try to guide my clients. This morning somebody called and said one of their employees has a family situation that would bring tears to your eyes, and the employee is brand new. What does he do? The employee has no time off. And when it comes to consistency, you would say you have to be consistent. He doesn't have time off, but we worked through solutions. And again, this is where I empower my employers. I say, here's your options. And I'm always going to give you more than one option. And I'm also going to say to you, if you choose option A versus option B, this is your liabilities. This is the downside to that. Sometimes there's clear solutions, Susan. So it's not always difficult. But what
Right.
I try to do is give multiple solutions, as I'm sure you do in your business. Here's multiple solutions. Here's the positives and negatives of each of those solutions. And here's the one that I'd probably choose. But in the end, it's the business owner's decision.
Absolutely. I see our roles as consultants and advisors to guide, to say, here are the spectrums of the potential actions you can take. And you're right, it's ultimately up to them because they need to live with the consequences, as my father used
Right.
to say, of their decisions. And so they have to be comfortable and going into it with that transparency that you give to them about those pros and cons of the options. 100% agree.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you would like people to remember about our conversation today.
I think that I want people to remember some of the positives that the pandemic has created, because in the end, the positive thinking and the looking at things head on is what's going to make all of us resilient. So there is positive things and there definitely is huge negatives, but I think we need to balance our thinking. I think we need to make sure that we're not forgetting kindness in every day, not just in business, in every day. I'm the president of my street association, which is not a lot of houses, and so we just had a bad storm on top of the pandemic. So what are we doing to help our neighbors? What are we doing to help people, instead of putting blinders on and saying, I don't want to be around people, I can barely deal with this? It's our responsibility, I feel, to help others around us. And again, live by kindness and helping others, again, in our personal lives as much as in our business lives.
So I'm going to summarize what you said, because I think it was so beautiful, is to focus on the positives that the pandemic is really shifting our mindset to think about how we can empower ourselves and others through kindness every day, personally and professionally, and to be mindful of our neighbors, whether they're physical neighbors, virtual neighbors,
Right.
word neighbors in community. So
Perfect.
Mary, how can we find you? Because we want people to find you.
So I can be reached via the PMP website. So that's pmphr.com. The phone number here is 516-921-3400. And my email is M for Mary Simmons, SIMMONS @pmphr.com.
Perfect. So I'm going to repeat that. Mary can be reached through the PMP website, which is pmphr.com. The phone number for the office is 516-921-3400. And Mary's email is msimmons@pmphr.com.
Perfect.
You're welcome. I want to thank you so much, Mary, for sharing your insights today. And for our audience, remember words that Mary said about positivity and kindness and the actions that you can take during these trying times. And I look forward to the next conversation.